Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Snarf number 14, continuing our look at this great underground comics anthology. And we start off with a cover by Robert Berger. Not familiar with him. I think he was just a graphic designer. That would be my guess. Kind of a weird cover, well executed, but it's not really funny or anything. It's just a bunch of fish flying on the surreal landscape or airscape, if you will. But I don't know. It's okay, I guess. We have another introduction from Dave Schreiner, the co-editor. And we start off with another contribution from Frank Stack. And this is another story featuring Dorman's doggy, Ping, the kind of repulsive poodle whose owner doesn't seem to love him very much. So we start off with his Ping's owner realizes there's very cheap tickets to Italy. So he's like, we're going to Italy. It'd be fool not to. The prices are so low. But then they got to worry about what to do about their dog. They can't just leave him in the house, of course. So they agree to put him in a kennel. This is wildly fluctuating the art in here, where some panels I really don't like. But then I love that portrait of Ping right here. That looks great. But then they'll be like this. This is like, yeah, that face on the woman. We get to see Frank Stack showing off his illustrative chops, drawing the canals of Venice and Italian scenes. They decide to leave Ping with a neighbor who actually likes Ping. She's like, I would love to look after him for 2 days. And when they get off the plane and they're heading home, they're like, oh, I'm sure Ping's missed us. She's probably been pining away. And then when they get home, Ping is growling at them. Ping likes this woman a lot more than she likes her owners. Next, we have a new contributor to Snarf, the French cartoonist Édika. First signs of activity of the reproductive glands. And this guy's hilarious. This is like so funny. I guess Dave Schreiner was saying how Harvey Kurtzman read this guy's stuff and was like, this guy's amazing. So it's got like the thumbs up from Harvey Kurtzman. And it is really funny stuff. And basically it's about these two kids who want to sneak into a porn theater, something you youngins might not even understand, but that was a thing. I never tried to sneak into a porn theater. I was too scared, but I kind of wanted to see those movies. Just the way he draws is funny. I love this old lady who works at the ticket counter. She's just crocheting, singing these old songs. And first these kids try to get in and they say, well, cumulatively we're 18. I'm 11 and he's 7. She's like, oh no, one of you must be 18. So then they decide to sneak in. And this is like, his cartooning is so animated, like a great old animated cartoon. I could totally picture like Bugs Bunny doing this, where he's crouching down, but he bumps right into the guard there, the usher, and he's just like trying to feel. He's afraid to look up. Like I can picture this stuff being in motion, the way he draws. He was definitely an example of that. After, this guy kind of catches them, they run away. And look at this as they round the corner. You can almost hear those little sound effects like And so then this guy comes up to the counter, to the ticket counter, and he gets in, but then he walks over a grate, and it's not a guy, it's the two kids doing that old trick of one of them's on the other one's shoulders with an overcoat. Once again, they run out of there in fear, and they do that little comic business. So now we see a blind guy with this weird looking dog. I love the design of this dog. And once again, it turns out it's all an elaborate ruse, because there happens to be, I don't know why, there's another dog in the theater, Because the guy was saying you can't go in there with a dog, but he's like, hey, I'm blind. But someone else had a dog in there, which chases them out. Turns out it's the kids again. They paid a blind man to help them get in. Now they all do that little thing. And they pay off the guy. So it just gets more and more ludicrous. Then they're like pallbearers. They're like, which way to the cemetery? They ask the usher. And they sneak in. I don't know how that helps them sneak into the theater. But then they get caught again. And they run away. Then we see this really, like, sexy prostitute walk up. Well, I mean, repulsive and sexy. And the usher's all like, how much? I can take a little break here. And then he grabs her butt, and the butt falls off. He grabs her boobies, the boobs fall off. They're balloons that just float away. And then it gets just more and more crazy ludicrous, where he feels her vagina. I don't even know what's going on there. Something explodes. And then he, well, this is interesting here. The prostitute says, look, the panel border's all twisted. Points to the panel border. It just has nothing to do with anything else. And then he keeps saying, oh, your hands. And they turn into weird shit. Oh, look at your nose. Your cute little button nose that falls off. And then there's little signs. So the nose is a cucumber. $2. When he grabs her lips, it's actually sausages with the price sign still on it. The hair is salad. This is so ludicrous. I love this guy. He's funny as hell. And then the teeth are a cob of corn with a little sign. The eyeballs are eggs. So the whole thing is this false body. Of course, we kind of saw that coming. I love this when he totally ends up shredding everything. Because he keeps discovering that it's all fake. It's like, what the hell? And look at this, just chaos here. And then, of course, it's the two little kids hiding in the bottom. And they run away. And then they just decide, hey, maybe we should just go home and watch Johnny Carson. Yeah, Johnny Carson's good. They finally give it up. Since none of their acts have worked. Really impressed with this story. I would totally want to find some more Édika work. Or Édika. Once again, we have a contribution from Sharon Clayman and Alvia. I gotta say, guys, these are kind of growing on me. They're not great. The cartooning's fine. And the stories are kind of interesting. And this one's about how the main character, I don't know if it's Sharon herself, this Elvis impersonator comes to her in a dream and basically says, I'm going to be your patron saint. So there's this little version of Elvis that lives in her purse now. She goes to a wedding shower of some woman she doesn't even like, or a baby shower? Wedding shower. And she sees her little Elvis. She says, oh, I want that. But she won't give it to him. But Elvis jumps out of the handbag, jumps into the punch bowl, and the woman accidentally drinks Elvis. Not that great, but I don't know. They're kind of interesting, those little stories. Next, we have one of my favorites, Jerry Jablonski. He goes by Gerald now. And I love these old Farmer Ned strips. This one's Dale the Skittish Mule. And these things are just, I can't really explain why they're so funny. Gerald Jablonski is just a really funny guy. And Father Ned just tells us weird barnyard tales of his various animals. And this one's about Dale, a very atypical mule who's very nervous and skittish. So Farmer Ned took an interest and wanted to be this mule's friend. He even took him to a trip to the big city. But some young smarty came along and threw a firecracker at the mule. And the mule ran and ran across the state line. And Farmer Ned never saw her again. He did find the young rowdy, as he puts it, with the fireworks, and boxed his ears. And then he says, Dale, if you're reading this, I want you to know that my barn is always open to you. Joe Jablonski was really into the pointillism then. We have horse demons. And for some reason, this guy's the narrator, Manitoba Mike, who looks like a swami. And he's telling everyone about how there was a small town full of vandals and rowdies, most of them horses. So these horses are running riot through this city, causing all this trouble. And they decide to burn down Farmer Ned's barn, which they do. And the firemen show up, which is the fireman, the chief is a billy goat for some reason. Next we see Pretty Boy. This is another critter on Farmer Ned's farm. Pretty Boy had a high opinion of himself. He had a rotten disposition. He bullied all the other horses. And Farmer Ned figured it was time to teach him a lesson. So he hitched him up to this wagon and let all of his other horses ride on it with an outhouse for some reason. And he made him ride around town. By day's end, Pretty Boy seemed quiet and humble. But then that evening, he jumped the fence. And Farmer Ned says, "That's the last I saw, Pretty Boy. Good riddance." These are so odd. Next, we have another P.S. Mueller, Wapo and Spivel versus the Puffa Man. And apparently, the Puffa Man shows up. And supposedly, the Puffa Man comes for all puppets sooner or later. He hypnotizes puppets and then force feeds them styrofoam till they clot. And then for some, all of a sudden, Spivel sees his grandfather. Oh, I'm sorry, is his father? No, yeah, his grandfather. Who doesn't look like a puppet, but I guess he is. And the grandfather says, "I've come to warn you, he'll promise you freedom. Then he'll fill you with plastic." And then he explodes. And then the Puffa Man shows up, and he says, "Spivel, if you're tired of a head full of fingers, I'll make you free and autonomous." And he gives him little legs. So Spivel's all like, "I can move, I can dance, this is great." But then he realizes he's hungry. So it's almost made him like human. And so he runs off with Puffa Man because he says, "I've got food at my place. I've got frozen peas even." But as soon as he gets there, he starts feeding him that styrofoam. And Spivel is swelling up. And then for some reason, a bee comes up to Wapo, what's his name? Wapo. And says, "I haven't stung anything in weeks. Can you help me?" He's like, "Oh, I know a guy who needs to be stung to death. Go back to your hive and get your pals." So he goes back to the place. He rescues Spivel, puts in a fake one in his place, and it turns out it's full of bees. So the bees all come out and attack the Buffer Man. And he says, "Being is nothingness." That's a groaner right there. But such a groaner that it kind of made me chuckle. This is a very weird, surreal strip. This is Steve Stiles. It's called Work and Win. And it seems to take place in the sci-fi future. And a lot of it is just, I think it's almost like making fun of old soap operas. Because it'll be like, our story thus far. Brian suspects that his recent Dream series, Train Tunnels, What Skyscrapers, have been pre-recorded. Kimberly, raised by the aliens, is taken aback to discover that she is pregnant, despite an ample supply of coal tar. And all these things have just weird segues that don't really make sense. The whole thing really doesn't make sense. There'll be little interludes where you see these characters interacting, like this guy's all like, "Let me in, Barbara, let me in." She's like, "No, go away. I never want to talk to you again." And then we realize that he's out in space. He really needs to get in. So all these little snippets of stories in between these, our story thus far, which just get more and more inane. 50 names, all doing these crazy things in the sci-fi future. Pretty fun cartooning, like really kind of classic. We see these clone brothers, and one of them wants to leave. I don't understand a lot of it. Apparently there's spots on the sun, and the sun's growing larger. Maybe it's turning into a red giant or something. This guy sees a sunflower, and they're like, get away from that, stand back. And the sunflower like obliterates him with a laser beam. Very odd strip, but kind of fun. It's I kind of liked it. I don't know why, because I didn't really understand anything. And then of course this keeps going on. The whole, all these names, all these doing weird shit. So here we have Via and what's her face again, Sharon. God damn it, Sharon Clayman. And this one is a kind of a interesting auto bio about being a youngster. So this woman, she was fascinated by hypnotists. She saw one on Johnny Carson. She got invited to this birthday party, and she was thrilled to find out that they hired a hypnotist as the entertainment. This guy, though, just seemed like a sham, just some crappy magician. He had all the tricks from that magic set you'd buy on TV. I don't know if they still did that when you guys were younger, but in the 70s, there was always that commercial like, get this magic set, you'll learn all the tricks. It was in a big box and taught you how to do all these coin tricks and stuff. So she steals this guy's magic wand, and then she spends weeks trying to hypnotize her dog and her brother. It's kind of a charming little story growing up. So now we have 5 more pages of Joe Matt stuff. Lots of little panels. Here's another kind of a continuation. Some more things you need to know about Joe Matt. That is kind of redundant after reading these comics for a while. We already know a lot of these things. But, it's still fun. It's a fun comic. This is shows this next one, The Trouble with Heidi, really shows Joe Matt now. He has this almost, well, I don't know if it's a neurological problem, a psychological problem, where it's just yeah, you're being really honest, but you don't need to. Because this woman, Heidi, might read the strip, and he's just saying pointing out all of her faults. And I imagine if, Heidi read the strip, she'd probably be pretty bummed that he's talking about her. I would if I had a girlfriend who was laying out an ex, laying out all my faults in a comic. All the gross things she does. And just, it's pretty mean-spirited. But, of course, as a reader, this is why I love Joe Matt. Because he's telling you shit that nobody else would. It's oh my God, I can't believe you're telling us this stuff. But, of course, this is an old girlfriend. It didn't work out. He only dated her for a month because she had all these things that he didn't like. And then we have a little bottom strip about Joe Matt and his book hoarding. Here's a fun strip just about my old roommates. And he just basically lists off every roommate he had since he left home for college. And their faults and their virtues. Kind of fun. Here's another diary strip, once again, talking about his porn obsession. He's he still has this weird compulsion to go see porn, even though he's getting laid regularly with his girlfriend, Trish. He's promised her he wouldn't, indulge in pornography again. And then one night he's really horny and all of his favorite porn stars show up. And he basically orders them to leave. But he's just just get out. No, wait. Just leave. Come back. No, wait. He's still torn. So at the end, we just, he's still struggling. Next, we see one where Joe's at his therapist, and the therapist looks like a clown. And basically, it's because Joe Matt's saying, I'm so tired of drawing myself in these autobio strips. And it's just getting boring. I want to draw other things. I want to draw clowns. So you realize that that's why he looks like a clown. And then he says, God, all my faces look the same. I might as well use a rubber stamp. How do other cartoonists deal with this dilemma? And then they showed Nancy, who obviously looks like Ernie Bushmiller just had a rubber stamp of her head all the time. So he says, I'm going to make a whole new strip. And he makes this strip called Dregs, about this kind of disgusting little creature who keeps finding food in the folds of his body, sagging body. And then he's like, I don't even draw myself with lips. So the psychiatrist says, maybe these will help. He gives him a box labeled lips. And Joe puts them on. And the psychiatrist says, put this paper bag back on your head. You look disgusting. And next we have another one-pager from Mark Landman, the computer, the pioneer of computer cartooning pretty much. One bright day in the middle of the night. And this is like a little poem, almost like a goofy type poem. You know, it's like all the nonsense poem, like one bright day in the middle of the night, two dead boys got up to fight. Back to back, they faced each other, drew their swords, and shot each other. You know, that kind of a nonsense rhyme. Kind of interesting, the art. And it definitely, at this time, guys drawing on a computer, it looked way worse than this. So I got to give him kudos for, he figured out a way to not look completely lame using computer art. But yeah, for the most part, never been a big fan of Landman. And that's it for Snarf number 14. We only got one issue left to go, guys. I'm kind of bummed. I'm like, oh man, it was so much fun looking at these. But I guess in a few days, maybe less than a week probably, we'll wrap this up and I'll show you off number 15. And then we'll move on to some other anthology. But I hope you guys like looking at this issue, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.